to the sidelines. Has a man wide open. It's tipped. It's picked off. MJ Devonshire. Got face. He's going to take it to the end zone. Pittsburgh takes the lead.
He loves those moments. It reminds me of last year in the Garden against St. John's. And guys just stepped up. Blake hits a what the hell 3. You know, we're like, what are you doing? And he's done that all year.
Klicka out to Bizzario. It's over. The Pitt Panthers have upset Wisconsin. Anybody if he hits his field goal. Up and got it. Sauls does it again.
I don't even have a bit to open up this show with. Fucking welcome back to Simplified Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Kaminsky. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Mason Kling and Kent Vanderwood. That game sucked. We'll get to it. We'll say at the top here, we're not going to do as much in-depth coverage of teams outside of Pittsburgh for this show, just because we haven't done our basketball preview yet, and we're going to do it tonight at the end of the show. So we'll kind of touch on some of the games this weekend as part of our recap of the SMU game, but I haven't even looked at the slate for this week, so don't yell at me if we don't say anything, because I warned you. However, Mason, how are we doing tonight?
Been better.
Yeah.
I think we're all probably gonna have similar feelings that way, but very much a bury the tape game behind us. So we saw it. It happened. Burn the tape, bury the tape, waterboard the tape. I don't know. Whatever we have to do. Just forget that game.
I'm thinking ocean bury. I think you burn it and then you dump the ashes at sea so that they can never be recovered.
I like that. Osama style.
Yeah, this team went JFK mode in Dallas, and we're burning the tape Osama style. Shout out to the Loyal Sons for that joke, because I stole it from them. Ken, doing poorly?
Poorly as ever, Zach.
Hey, I just gotta say, at least all of our NFL teams won this week. I think if that wasn't the case, we'd be in a much worse spot. But we at least, I don't know.
Yeah, we did.
I'm still digesting a World Series disaster clash from the Yankees and Aaron Boone. So I'll be honest with you here. We're recording this on Sunday. I didn't watch a second of football. I need a deep cleanse from my body. What I saw Saturday night was horrific, horrendous, and I guess it's time to talk about it. Pitt loses 48-25 in Dallas. The score really was not even that close. It was 48-11 going into garbage time. The backup scored 2 touchdowns to close the game out to make it somewhat respectable. I'll be honest with everybody here. Once they went up, I think 41-11, I stopped watching. I went to bed. I figured it would do me no good to watch the rest of that game.
Yeah, simply did not watch the end. It got to a point. It was just time. It was time to turn the TV off. It felt like it was time to turn the TV off in the first half. But it's like one of those car crash videos. Like you just keep watching. But at some point you got to turn it off.
Yeah, it got to a point in the car crash video where I'm like, oh, that person died. I got to stop watching this one here. And I guess let's talk about the death here, the post-mortem. I think that it's safe to say that all 3 phases of the game looked awful. The offense did not get out of its slump. The defense had an uncharacteristically bad night. I mean, just overall, I think every high leverage play, Pitt either fucked up on offense or just let a big play happen on defense. SMU was so explosive on Saturday night. Then even in special teams, I mean, Caleb Junko had an uncharacteristically bad game for this year. He did not have good punts in the first half. And then really the fucking big omen was that Ben Sauls missed a field goal. I think once that happened, I think we just should have known that we were in for a long night.
Yeah, the special team stuff was kind of just like the cherry on top. I think you can't expect a kicker to be perfect forever, but you're definitely right. It didn't help the vibes.
No.
Didn't help the vibes. But yeah, it just felt like every time it came to a place where you're like, all right, stopping a score here and we're back in it, we just weren't up for the task. Um, and that's a recipe for things getting out of hand pretty quick, which is what happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Junko was impressively bad. Um, you get down early, your offense goes, 3 and out. The last thing you need is your punter to put your defense in a bad spot after that. He had 3 punts last night, none of which went longer than 27 yards, which is insane. That's hard to do. Like,
Yeah, we haven't gotten a game from him this bad basically this entire year. And I mean, to put it out there, I think that there was not a single unit on this team that really did a good job other than putting that freshman in on kick returns in the second half. I think he's got some juice in the special teams game, but that's probably the only positive I've got. I guess we'll start with the defense. I probably have more to say on the offense, so I'll save that for a little bit later. But the defense, I don't know what it was, but they did not look like they were playing at game speed. Obviously, we can talk about the three probably most pivotal missed tackles that I've ever seen in a game where they would have gotten third down stops or even losing yards, but they missed these tackles and turned them into 20, 30, 50-yard plays. Like, that's something we just have not seen from the defense. Like, it was I think I said this last night, but SMU gave us basically a clinic in how to run the fucking hurry up offense because they got on the ball and they were gashing us every single play. Like whether it was, I think they started to, it was almost like the missed tackles were a heat check, and once they saw that go, they were like, they can't stop us. Like it's not even like good analysis, but the defense just wasn't good. The offense didn't help them, but the missed tackles just kind of started this downward spiral in the game.
yeah, some of those missed tackles were just like, I don't know. I don't even know how to put into words how just atrocious, like you said, I think the three of those were.
Mhm.
It accounted for, I think, a majority of their yards offensively, and at least the first quarter. There was some stat I saw that somebody had pulled by the end of the game that was like, well, regardless, the one right off the bat, basically, they had a 2nd and 10. Defense had a chance for a third down right off the bat, forcing 3 and out. Rashad Battle just simply doesn't wrap up. The guy runs for 50 yards and they score. Just a really, really horrible way to start the game. Uh, just not really any excuse for not wrapping up and just putting a shoulder into a guy and expecting him to go down.
Tackling was bad. What I think was even worse was some of the angles and just pursuit that we had on defense as well.
Mhm.
This team calls himself the Land Sharks because of what was the quote, how hungry they are, and how they all want to be making tackles and like pursuit to the ball and effort and that sort of thing. And I didn't see that on Saturday. It looked like, damn, this sounds bad, but it kind of looked like JV players playing against varsity where they were like taking angles that would work in the JV game, and then they played against faster players and they're like, oh shit, we're actually just going to get burnt. So that partnered with all the missed tackling and stuff that you both talked about was like, it was just tough. It was tough to watch the defense.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to go off those missed tackles, I think that they just sort of got demoralized very fast. Whether that's fair or not to get demoralized, like they were playing already, I think, in a bad state when the offense isn't helping you out very much. And then the other thing is, I think that really, I mean, this is probably the first time we can say this all year, but Narduzzi and Bates did not have a good defensive game plan going into this game because they were killing us with quick hitters in the pass game. They had so many quick strike plays to beat the blitzes we were bringing, and they just kept bringing blitzes, even though every time SMU was going to just throw right past it. I think they might have had like 1 or 2 sacks last night in the first 3 quarters. Like the pressure was not working. Um, they were not getting any disruption in the run game. It got to a point sort of in the second half where like they were just running wild all over us because they couldn't account for anything in any facet of what SMU is doing on offense. Like obviously the corners just did a very poor job tackling, and coverage was not great. But honestly, I think it was sort of just a bad game plan. I think they really should have stopped bringing pressure when like clearly SMU had pressure beaters to get them all night.
Well, and Narduzzi even like hinted at that after the game. He said that like it was a bad game plan, which is just kind of frustrating. I guess it's good that he's like being accountable, saying that the coaches probably didn't do a great job this week, but
that's something. But that's like that's not even like game plan. That's like play calling, right? That's something you can adjust mid-game.
adjustments, yeah.
Like you just stop calling blitzes on 3rd and short, and they probably, maybe you get a stop instead of giving up a 10-yard gain on a quick hitter when, because 6 or 7 players are going to be rushing the backfield, pops it over their head, and now everyone's going to take a fucking dog shit angle, try and tackle them 18 yards down the field.
Yeah. I feel like earlier in the season when we talked about some of these other games, we really harped on how good the adjustments were to adjust, and we simply did not have that on Saturday. So I don't know what was different about, because that's the thing too, is you go down a couple scores, this team shouldn't be demoralized. Like we've come back in games before. Why was it different? Why didn't we make adjustments? So I don't know.
I think part of it is that more than any team since West Virginia, probably, this team was the one that's been able to score on us or was able to run the ball on us. Like Syracuse and Cal could not run the ball, and SMU was running wild all over this defense. I think that was probably the main factor. And like all three of us are former football players. When a team can run the ball on you, it sucks the energy out of that defense really quick, because not only are they moving the ball and doing it at will, but they're beating the fuck out of you every time they want to do it, and they're winning. But I guess we want to talk about the other side of sort of the demoralization, is that the offense for the 3rd week in a row has not recovered to its status in the first 5 games. Everything was out of sync. They've continued to be absolutely terrible on 3rd down. I think they're like 3 for their last 40 going into the 4th quarter last night. And you know what? I guess I'll just put the hot take out here, is that something is wrong or broken with Eli. I don't know if it's physical. I don't know if it's mental. I know he had an injury going into this week, but it's not that he like looks bad. He's a redshirt freshman. I get it. He's not going to have an awesome game every time. But in this game where everything went wrong, the only thing that's been consistently wrong with this team has been the fact that Eli has not looked like himself the last 3 games. And it's not that he's not making the big plays, is that in this game, he was not even making the easy plays. Several times on key downs, and this is what I'm saying, like every high leverage play they lost, on defense, they couldn't make the tackles, but on offense, 3rd and short, they could not keep the ball on the field. Eli turfed several throws. Like, I don't know if it's a mental thing or if it's just a physical injury thing, but something is wrong with the offense, and especially like with the quarterback. Am I going to say bench him because Nate looked better against the second strings? No, he was playing against SMU's backups. They're trying to go home and get out of the stadium. And, Nate was just trying to get some points on the board. But I think they really got to look at this and look at what is going wrong with Eli, because, if he can't go and the running game hasn't looked great either, especially now with your backup left tackle, Terrence Enos did not have a good night in Dallas. Like, I don't even know where to start, I guess, with fixing this offense. I don't know if you have any big takes before anything else.
I mean, I feel like that's above our pay grade, but that's where we literally hired this guy, Cade Bell, to come in and be this offensive guru. And he has been early, but when shit's kind of hit the fan, that's where things have not been as good.
I think I don't even know if I blame Cade Bell, because I don't think he really even called a particularly like bad.
You think it's more of an execution? You think it's more of an execution thing?
Like, on one hand, I don't love all the quarterback runs he calls, especially with Eli possibly being hurt, and I don't think they're really working as well as they have been, especially now with just the regular run game not being as great. But like, he was calling plays that could have gotten first downs, and the offense just didn't execute them. And like, I think that Terrence Enos in his second start at left tackle did not have a good time. He let up way too much pressure. But he had some plays that could have kept him on the field. But the issue is that Eli was not making the throws. I think that he is simultaneously, like, at times he's too within the structure of the offense, then other times trying to do too much. Like, I think a couple times last night, Eli was moving in the pocket, and there were times where he just would run into pressure to try and keep looking downfield, or he would like get out of the pocket and there'd be green grass in front of him and try and get some pickups and yards, but he would still keep looking downfield, and then the timer doesn't go off. He gets tackled for like a 2 yard loss or like a 1 yard gain, and what could have been a broken play that still works. I think he's just doing too like he's just doing trying to do too much. He's trying to shoulder too much load, and like it wasn't the best called game from an offensive standpoint. I don't think it's like a referendum on the offense that Cade Bell's running, but I think they have to look at sort of.
It's a look in the
I
mirror
mean,
week. It's a look in the mirror week this week.
yeah, especially like they have to look in the mirror and say, how are we coaching Eli to play in these games? Because I think they're just something is not getting through to him, because he needs to be, one, just more accurate, but two, more decisive, especially on these plays where, like I mentioned, he can't be running into the pressure. He can't be running out of pressure and then not getting anything from it. Like, just everything went wrong. Everything went wrong. Um, I guess you really can't do much about the O line. The run game is sort of a factor of that. When it comes to the quarterback, do you guys think that Eli should have a short leash this week against Virginia, with Clemson coming up the next week?
Yeah, I think that's probably warranted. I'd like to think that maybe it's more of a opportunity for him to get back in rhythm. I think is the ideal outcome of that. But yeah, I think you can't ignore some of the shortcomings that we've seen the past couple of weeks. But not giving up on him yet. We just kind of, like you said, have to situation we're monitoring.
So yeah, I don't think that you should give up on him, but I think that or Kent, do you have a take on it before I go back into it?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, obviously it's been 3 weeks in a row. He has not looked like the quarterback that this team really needs him to be. Um, the expectations for this team as a team have changed. So you got to hold everybody accountable, and that there's no stone left unturned there. There's nobody that's safe from being held accountable to play at a level to help the team win when you're 7-1 in a 12-team college football playoff era where the door's kind of wide open. We can talk about some of the other games, but it seems like there's still an opportunity here for this team to make a run at that. And yeah, you got to hold everybody accountable so that Eli's not above that. Short leash, I agree. There should be um, some form of leash there. I don't know how short it should be. Um, I guess it also depends on how Nate's looking in practice and stuff too. Trusting the coaches, what they see. But I don't think Eli's done enough necessarily to lose his job yet. I think they have a good opportunity at a get right game and to figure some stuff out against a weak team this weekend, leading up to obviously a big test against Clemson.
Yeah, so I agree that, like, I'm not calling for Eli to be benched. I do think that they should be wary of what he's doing. Like, if he's not improving against Virginia, like, you just have to look at how you can help this team just get out of this funk. I still believe that Eli is going to be the quarterback of the future. I think he's supremely talented, a very smart player. It's just that he's not putting any of that together right now. Whether that is physical, mental, or poor play calling, or just whatever, maybe it's a confluence of all these things. If he's not helping you win games, you have to try and at least win it somewhere else. And like Kent mentioned, people have been saying this, but if you had told me before the season started, yeah, you're 7-1 in the first week of November, I'd take it. Even after last night's game, I'll still take it. I'm just annoyed because the expectations have obviously changed with the 12-team playoff. And sort of Kent mentioned this, but Pitt is still a top 25 ranked team. I would assume that they're going to be ranked in the first college football playoff poll, but this is sort of the worst place to take a loss. Now, with just sort of the other ranked teams losing ahead of us, like A&M, Clemson, Iowa State, Kansas State, all lost ahead of us. And that's a big reason as to why SMU jumps from 20 to 13. But the other thing is that really with losing to SMU, unless everything goes wrong for this SMU team, even if Pitt wins out, the ACC championship is most likely going to be SMU versus Miami because they don't really have many losable games left on the schedule. At this point, the only path to the 12-team playoff, which, is crazy to say considering where we were with so many question marks coming into this season, would be to win out and hope that some SEC teams and Big Ten teams lose some more. That will open up some more spots for a possible 11-1 non-conference champion Pitt. That's probably your only path in, but it's sort of a balancing act between disappointment of squandering an opportunity and the realism of this is a rebuilding team and they dropped a stinker on the road against a like let's be fair. SMU, I didn't think that highly of them coming in. They're worth their number 13 ranking. It just so happens that our team, who deserves to be in the top 25 as well, just had no phase of the game that played up to their ranking, especially on offense. Big week to just find out what went wrong. You have to find out what is going wrong at the quarterback position. Really try and shore up the run game and hope that the offensive line just doesn't have another performance like that against Virginia. However, it's also not the end of the world. This team is 7-1. They can still have an amazing season. Like, I don't know, if this team wins 10 games, yes, it will be like disappointing from where we were in October. But that was probably the best outcome I was thinking of in the beginning of the season. Like, I think this team is still in a good place. It's just that it's our first loss, so obviously we're going to overreact to it, even if that means me saying, "Oh, what if we bench Eli?" I'm probably overreacting in that.
Yeah, I think that's a good positive outlook on it. There's, this is simply a bump in the road, and we got a lot of really great games left. And you never know. It's college football. A lot can happen. So we just got to get back on the winning train and just kind of see things as they fall.
Yeah, Kent, do you guys have any other sort of big takeaways from this SMU game, or do you want to quickly talk about what's going to happen next week against Virginia, or I guess this week coming up?
I got nothing else on this game other than, SMU. Kudos to them. They're a good team. Pitt was not ready to play that game. They came out very flat, obviously. I think Pitt was surprised by how good SMU actually was on the field. I don't know if they thought if they let 7-0 get to their heads, they thought it was going to be an easy win. But yeah, disappointing. Obviously, I think we covered everything else though. Burn it, move on, win next week.
Yeah, and this team does have a really good opportunity to get right next week against Virginia. Virginia's coming into this game at 4-4, currently 2-3 in the conference. They can throw the ball a little bit. You definitely have to be worried about that, but they have given up a fair number of sacks on the year. Hopefully the defense and the front seven can get right against this team. They don't run the ball all that particularly well. The fun fact is that their quarterback is their leading rusher by attempts. By yards, they have Kobe Pace, who's running for 390. Calandria can definitely throw it. I don't really love any of their wide receivers in terms of like who stands out to me. Malachi Fields is definitely their top guy to keep an eye on. But listen, this team, this Virginia team, is clearly a step below Pitt in terms of power ranking the ACC. So if they are a good team, and if they were not just a flash in the pan through 7 games, what we need to see from them is a get right game. Is a game where they come in and they take care of business. Night game in Pittsburgh is going to be 8 o'clock on the ACC network, which these 8 o'clock kicks are way too fucking late for me. I feel so old saying that, but this is a game where they have to come in and just really beat up on Virginia, because that's what a team of their caliber should do.
Couldn't have really said it better than myself. Just play Pitt football again. Don't let one loss don't compound losses.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to say about this game. It's just kind of I don't want to look ahead to Clemson, but it is just like a win, take care of business, so that the faster we win this game, the faster we can just move on to focusing on the Tigers.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't think they're going to overlook it, because I think coming off a loss, that the mindset on the South Side has to be about getting right. The Virginia defense is not that great. Hopefully, the offense, you just kind of see one go in and just get some confidence, some mojo back. I do think the defense might have a pretty big day against these guys. I mean, they did not look good in their last game against UNC. I mean, they were on a bye this week, but right now UVA is riding a 3-game losing streak coming into next Saturday. But listen, just win this game, stay in the top 25, and then you've got a big, basically, I think this basically sets up as a game against Clemson, whether this team is for real or just a above average team in most eyes, probably of us and everyone around the country. I don't have much to say in terms of specifics on this game. Really, just I'm looking for a lot of things to get right. I'm looking for the offense to turn it around, look for the defense to settle down, and hopefully Ben Saul doesn't miss another one for another really bad omen to start off next week's game. And just be better on third down. That's the other key, is that they have to stop being so horrible on third down.
Yeah. Other thing I'll say is I'll talk to the fans. Anybody in and around Pittsburgh, support the boys on Saturday. They need some fan support in the stands on Saturday. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that Clemson game, but get out to Acrisure for the game on Saturday. The boys could really use as many fans in the stands as they can get. They're 7-1. Support them for the Virginia game ahead of Clemson next week.
Yeah, 100%. As much as I've been negative on this show, this is still a 7-1 football team that has defied all odds. There's one of 2 remaining home games that they got left. It's a night game. Need everyone there. Need everyone rowdy. Have a loud crowd in Pittsburgh to throw Virginia off and support this team. Like, one loss has not killed their season. It's just a step back on a rebuilding team that so far has just defied all expectations and odds. So either way, I'm confident they're going to get right, and everyone there. I mean, we'll be at the not the Virginia game. We'll be at the Clemson game, just because we do not live sort of local. But if you can, get down to that Virginia game. So don't have much else on football. Like I said before, we're not going to do sort of looking at the slate ahead, because we are talking hoops. Kent, this is your time to shine and let you have the lead. Let's talk some Pitt basketball, because
Yes, sir.
they start tomorrow night, right? Against
Tomorrow
Radford.
night. Correct. Yeah, that's where we'll start. I think we have a pretty good off-season coverage / season preview for you guys lined up here. But yeah, we'll begin. Pitt kicks off the season, or I should say tips off the season tomorrow against Radford at the Pitt. We got time for that one handy? Zach, you got
I want to say it's a 7 o'clock game, but give me a couple seconds here.
All right. Yeah, Radford, honestly, let's see here. Sorry, I'm pulling up everything here.
Yeah, so while Kent's pulling some stuff up to go over the early season schedule, this week they've got Radford 7 o'clock on Monday in the Pete. This Friday they got Murray State coming to the Pete, also a 7 o'clock game. Next Monday is going to be against Gardner Webb at home, also at 7. And then next Friday, November 15th, West Virginia comes to Pittsburgh for the backyard brawl at 8 o'clock. Are we going to go to that game? Are you going to be?
I'm going with my parents actually.
Hell yeah.
I
And
think.
I'm not gonna be in Pittsburgh till Saturday, so
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Maybe I'll get a ticket. Got to see what the prices are. I can't really go.
yeah. Alrighty, so off season, obviously, very different looking roster we got going on here. I guess I will ask you guys: was there a particular off season move that you guys have in mind that sticks out as your favorite in terms of transfer, freshman, anything that you're looking forward to?
Bunch of transfers coming in that I'm really excited about. Um, I think the most kind of, I don't know, like upside or what I'm most excited to watch is I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of his name here, but
The Bosnian guy.
yeah, how do you say his name?
And it's Dalalic is his last name, I believe.
Delali. Yeah, pro pro player that
Mm-hmm.
we somehow recruited. Um, his tape from the league he was in was really good. I don't know if it was the best competition in the world, but he seems like a guy that can shoot the ball really well. Um, brings kind of an X factor to the team. Um, and yeah, I just think he's going to be a fun one to watch. Probably get a decent amount of penetrating kick from Jalen Lowe. Little pick and pop with him as well. Um, so yeah, he's kind of my who to watch from the off season.
I think I've got sort of one pick in the transfers and then one freshman looking forward to. Very much looking forward to seeing how the addition of Cam Corrin at the 5 is going to change how this offense looks. I think it's really probably the best big man Jeff Capel's had in his tenure so far. And then the freshman Brandon Cummings, just hearing really good things of him from practice. He can shoot the ball really well. I heard he was awesome in their blue and gold scrimmage. I think Corrin's obviously going to the bigger impact right away as a starter. Cummings probably off the bench behind two great guards returning from last year. But I'd say those are the two guys I'm looking forward to seeing the most. Kent, who's your pick?
Yeah, I like both those picks. I do. It is tough to pick for me. I think I could see a lot of these guys making a really um, big impact pretty much immediately. Um, Delalic is injured, so I was going to mention that he's suffered a hand injury in practice. It was announced in late September that it was going to be about 6 weeks. They thought, so it should be ended up right about now. But you know how they are with. I think that's the latest update. I haven't seen anything else from Capel or from Pitt Athletics regarding his status. Kind of going into the season tomorrow. But he may not be ready to go right away. But I would say my pick would also be. Um, did you go with Corrin or Cummings, Zach?
I said both, so whichever one you pick, I'll take the other one.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna say. I think, frankly, I'll go with Corrin. I think he's going to be a really big help on the boards this year. I think overall this team's going to be a much better rebounding team than we've had in the last few years. I just think we have more size and more guys down low that are have enough weight to them that they can really rebound with the rest of the ACC. It's not like last year or the last couple of years where we go down a guy and you really have to rely on the Twins to be down low and off the bench. The additions that we have and Papa Conte coming back should really help Pitt be able to use the Twins more on the wings. But Cam Corrin really destroyed Pitt on the boards against us as an FSU player. So I think taking him away from them and having him on our side is going to be a really big impact for the Panthers right away.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that, but Papa Conte, even though he is in his second year with the program, it does feel like he is a new addition with how he missed all of last season. That's a really good point, because then he'll be your backup at the 5, and then the Twins can probably just play 4 instead of being very undersized 5s.
Yeah, our front court is actually going to be pretty deep this year, which is going to be a nice to have. I know somebody else that's kind of coming in from Texas Tech, I believe, or
Houston,
is it Houston? Damian Dunn too is another asset that we haven't seen a lot of, obviously, but I think could be somebody that has a pretty big impact. This is such a deep roster that it felt like times at last year where we kind of rotate through maybe like 8 guys. I could see us going like a full all the way down to the 10th man on the roster here when you look at the experience and kind of people that we have. So as a whole, I'm just excited to be a little bit of a deeper team than we have been in years past. I think that'll be nice for that long, kind of grueling ACC schedule, because we know that can be tough.
No, Damian Dunn, another great name, actually. He's a very, very good player. Transferred from, like you said, Houston. He didn't have a very big role or as big of a role on the Houston offense as he did at his previous school, which was he transferred there from
Houston. Also just hates offense in general, so having his role step back a little bit could just be because they don't score points.
Yeah,
he was at Temple prior to Houston.
Okay, yeah, he was at Temple. He's a good player. He can score the rock as well. I think, like you said, there's a ton of depth on this team. I think I sent out a tweet from the pod account a few weeks ago. I don't think people necessarily understand just how good the depth is on this team. Like you said, Mason, there's really about 10 guys that I would feel comfortable starting. I'm going to be I think there's options at who you start minus, probably Jalen Lowe and Ish Leggett. I think there's different combinations that Capel can use depending on the matchup, which is really exciting. There's, we have a nice mixture of size, guards, whatever strengths that we really need to deploy against our particular opponent. I think that's a big difference that we have this year. We have a lot more options. And Capel has a lot of options, at his disposal on how he wants to play things. But, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then, we spent a lot of time here talking about the transfers, but we really haven't gone into sort of the returning players. And I think the first guy we got to talk about is Jalen Lowe here. Part of that 1-2 punch in the backcourt. I think with probably Dunn being your first guy up at the guard spot, but Lowe, I think, is sort of the budding superstar of this team, right?
Yeah, Jalen Lowe, at ACC Media Day, it was him and Ish Leggett that were there. But Capel, speaking to the media about Jalen Lowe, basically said that he thinks he can and expects him to be one of the leaders in the ACC in the assist category this year. I think there's a lot of expectations surrounding Jalen Lowe to kind of be the leader of this team as the point guard this year. Just really get everybody involved, get this team basically working together, playing together well, and just kind of command the offense here.
Yeah, I know we haven't had to many chances to watch this team play yet, but they have had an exhibition game against, I believe, Point Park, and also a secret scrimmage against, like a not so secret scrimmage against Cincinnati. Um, Jalen Lowe filled up the stat sheet on both of those games. He had a huge impact on the game um, from a points perspective, but also had a ton of assists. And stat sheet never tells you the whole story, but seems like he's definitely going to be like you guys said, the facilitator, kind of the captain of this Pitt offense.
Yeah, and not to mention, that Cincinnati's, quote unquote secret scrimmage. Cincinnati is ranked number 20 in the AP top 25 right now. They are a very well regarded team nationally, as well as in the Big 12, which is a really good basketball conference. That is a very, very impressive preseason win with a mix of veteran guys and new guys on a team that's had to mesh together, losing Bub and Blake.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to mention that as well. Obviously, the two scrimmages. One is secret against Cincinnati. They pull out a 9-point win, which is not, that's not necessarily a close win. A 9-point win is a solid dub, like you mentioned, against a top 20 AP poll team. John Rothstein, pretty highly regarded, basketball analyst for those of you on Twitter. He's pretty recognizable on there. He always does his top 45 teams, and Cincinnati was his 21st ranked team. Pitt's not even in the top 45 for him. Pitt's also not in the AP poll, if I'm not mistaken. Zach, you have it pulled up?
I don't believe they received a vote, but I'll pull it up right now.
They're not, but I don't think that they're far off. A lot of people that do like the top 40 rankings, they didn't crack the top 25 on any of them, but they were on a lot of those lists. So I think that we are kind of at least getting a little bit of respect, even though we've lost, some of our bigger players from last year. The ball knowers kind of realize that we reloaded a little bit and can be pretty solid again. I think,
I know we
strong
were
couple of wins will be okay.
Ken Pom, we were the 4th ranked team out of the ACC in the Ken Pom rankings, obviously behind Duke and a couple other teams. But honestly, the preseason poll stuff is definitely better. We're at a stronger starting point going into game 1 than we have been in quite some time, I think. We got a lot of transfer pieces. Brandon Cummings, I think, is going to be a really awesome freshman coming in as well. Let's see here. What else?
I guess with all these guys we talked about, Ken, who do you see as the starting 5 for this team?
I know that they had posted the starting lineups for the exhibition games, and I was going to see if I could pull that up a second as well. I thought I had it saved, but I don't. Jalen Lowe and Ish Leggett at the 1 and 2 for sure. And then I would assume it's going to be Zach Austin, Corin, and either one of the twins, or I guess it depends. This is kind of where it comes in. It's like, who's your opponent? Do you need more size? Do you need, more shooting to be in your starting lineup? I think this is also going to change throughout the season as these pieces kind of fit in together, and we find out, which pieces work the best together. But like I said, I would feel comfortable with any combination of the probably 10 or 11 guys on this team starting. I think if you take any random 5 of these guys and put them starting, they would destroy the Pitt basketball team from 5 years ago. So,
Yeah, it's looking like I got the stat sheet pulled up from Point Park here. They did not publish one for the Cincinnati scrimmage, which makes sense with the scrimmage. By minutes, your starting five are going to be, like you said, Ish and Jalen at the 1 and 2. And then Zach Austin, Guillermo, and Cam Corrin are the three forwards. Looks like Damian Dunn's going to be that 6-man rotation player for the guards. Brandon Cummings also got quite a bit of time. He got 17 minutes. And then Jorge got 12. Three players touched the court being Conte, Amdi and Daye, and Marlon Barnes, all with under 10. But I think it's probably safe to say that I think the four starters more or less set in stone are going to be Jalen, Ish, Zach, and Corin. Damian Dunn, probably give me your 6-man rotational guard, and then sort of pick your Diaz Graham twin at the 4.
Yeah, that adds up. That would be what I would anticipate to begin the season. Then I would assume they started the same way against Cincy. So yeah, no, that is pretty much what I would have guessed. Damian Dunn kind of being that sixth guy, seventh guy. One of the first guys off the bench to provide some scoring. But yeah, I think Corin for sure. Obviously, we'll see. Guillermo can start out starting in that fifth spot for to start the season, but that could always change, and we'll see. Obviously, we haven't seen Conte play, um, but I'm really just excited to see all these guys play and how things shake out. Delalic also has been out, so if he's back, don't know how that affects things.
He would probably split time with the Twins at the 4 if I had to guess. I would assume that they're probably going to work him back slow from injury because they do have the option of playing both Twins at the 4. It's just if I had to guess.
Tell us about the departures, Kent, and then we can talk schedule too.
Okay.
But as a whole.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, you mentioned it. I think Mason, you mentioned it. Yeah, we lost Blake Hinson, obviously, and Bob Carrington to the NBA. More pieces in than more pieces out. I do think, obviously losing the shooting from Blake Hinson, that's a big loss. Bob Carrington, a very good guard to complement Jalen Lowe. But I am excited to see how Jalen Lowe steps up with Bob Carrington sort of out and taking that step up as sort of the captain and leader of this team. Any thoughts or anything to add there?
No, I mean I think the question is how does the rest of the roster pick up? Because I think that overall Jalen Lowe is probably like at least from what I've seen in college. I have not watched 1 second of the NBA this year. He was, I think, a better distributor of the ball than Bub. He was also better at driving to the rim. It's really about how do you replace the shooting from Blake. I think early in the season is going to have to fall on those three guards and the Twins. Hopefully, you get Delalic back soon enough to where he can provide you that 3-point pop. But I think that's probably the biggest concern I have with this team going into the first game tomorrow against Radford.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Delalic was the last transfer that we added in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean he was technically like part of our recruiting class because he's
a freshman. He's a 21-year-old freshman. Fun fact. So yeah, the fact that he has multiple, I guess, well, yeah, he has all the eligibility. Obviously, basketball, you don't have to stay for more than a year, but if however that plays out. But regardless, he has 4 years of eligibility to play with us as a 21-year-old. And yeah, I think that was sort of Capel's answer to try and make up for some of the shooting from deep, especially that we lost from losing Blake Hinson. Delalic, hopefully you can get that hand healthy and be back soon. 6 weeks till now from late September adds up to hopefully be back shortly. So he'll have to work back in a little bit. I think it is his shooting hand, unfortunately, that he injured. So that's going to take a little bit of rehab, I'm sure, as well. Just get him feeling right before he's probably at full strength there. But yeah, I do think he is a pretty good. There's not another Blake Hinson out there. There's simply not, but you can add the pieces to try and make up for that. And I think Cable did a pretty good job of that this offseason.
Yeah, so let's get into that schedule here. What I guess Kent, what stands out to you? Let's talk non-con first.
Yeah, so non-con, they really don't go on a actual road trip. They're not getting on a plane until December. Obviously, a lot of home games against, you mentioned Radford. Um, who else we got here? Murray State at home, Gardner Webb at home, West Virginia at home. So yeah, a lot of home games to start off the season. West Virginia, obviously, the first Power Four opponent that we have away, but then we have a couple games in West Virginia also at a central location um, against LSU, and then the winner of the other game.
UCF and Wisconsin. Yeah, I mean the Greenbrier Invitational. I mean that's like an hour's drive from Pittsburgh, so they're just gonna take a bus to that one. Same thing with Ohio State going to Columbus. That's 3-hour drive. And like you said, the first one we're getting on is going to Mississippi State for the ACC SEC Challenge first week of December.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and go ahead, Mace.
that's where I'll say we were penalized pretty heavily for our non-con last year. People kept saying that was one of the big reasons we didn't make it into the tournament. It's not exactly, we're not doing like the Duke playing in the Maui Invitational kind of stuff, but I do think it's a more robust non-conference schedule than we had in years past. So what I'm hoping is that we'll get rewarded for that. People like Lenardi down the road can't say, "Oh, they played a bunch of cupcakes in their non-con." Yeah, everybody does. We played some good teams in LSU, Ohio State, Mississippi State as well, who are, I think Mississippi State went last year. They're always consistently pretty good. Um, Same for
Yeah,
Ohio State
Wisconsin
and
possibly. UCF is
Wisconsin.
pretty good.
Exactly. So there's teams on our schedule here that um, give us that opportunity to not get left out because of this later in the year. So I like our non-con. Some really good opportunities to beat some good teams and get some good tests before we even start ACC play.
And honestly, like I'm really excited for that Ohio State game. Like I don't have it up in front of me, but I feel like we haven't played Ohio State all that often in basketball. And I feel like that's something they should do more because it's a pretty good team, only 3 hours away. Like I think that's a really good opportunity of like just getting a very local game in. You can have a lot of fans travel to Ohio State to see that game. I think that was a really good addition late to the schedule on Pitt's part.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say, I was gonna loop that in as well, Mace. That obviously last year Pitt was one of the first four out of March Madness, notably because of their supposedly weak, out of conference schedule. But to a point, it is tough. You don't know who to schedule that's going to be good. Especially in the age of the transfer portal, teams can look completely different year to year, and their records can reflect that as well. So, if you really look at who Pitt played in non-con last year, if they had played them 2 years ago, they played a pretty good non-con schedule. It just happened last year. They turned out to be pretty weak. This year, again, they scheduled teams that, strength looking at it to begin the season look like it should be better. But you really never know. So you just got to kind of hope that who you schedule is also turns out to be pretty good the year that you're playing them instead of just based off of your perception of them, coming into the season.
Yeah, so sort of let's sort of look ahead to the ACC conference schedule here. And I'll just run through this here. Um, at the end, we can kind of talk about what games stand out, and then talk about sort of the ACC writ large. So they start off. Virginia Tech is their December game in Blacksburg, and then starting in January, that's when the conference schedule sort of goes into the swing of things. They've got Cal and Stanford at home. They go to Duke. They get Louisville at home, Florida State on the road, Clemson at home, Syracuse in New York, North Carolina in Pittsburgh, at Wake Forest, home against UVA, away at UNC, at SMU, home against Miami, home against Syracuse, at Notre Dame, home against Georgia Tech, at Louisville, at NC State, home for BC for senior night to end the year. Now, in all honesty, outside of catching UNC twice, is this not a fairly favorable schedule in terms of conference play? Or am I missing something here?
I mean, as far as ACC play goes, yeah, we're away at Duke, but we only get them once. Not sure what Virginia is going to look like this year with the departure of Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
Sarah, like all of these teams, you don't look at the schedule and chalk any of them up to like 100% win because it's ACC, and everybody's always going to be a little bit good in the ACC. But I do think we have one of the more favorable schedules here.
I think something working in our favor too is that we only get Clemson once because we just can't beat those guys.
Yep, they have our number.
Got them at home too, so that's favorable as well. I think if we went to Clemson, it would have been sort of I would write that one off pretty early, just in terms of narratives around what teams that got our numbers. But overall, like pretty favorable, and like I think notably, they don't have to go to the West Coast at all. There are no West Coast trips to get. The farthest they go is to
SMU.
To SMU, yeah.
Yeah, from a travel perspective, I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, it's that can be what makes that schedule so grueling. So Tom, like I don't know how the Big Ten's going to do it, where on a Tuesday night you're going to have USC coming to Rutgers. I don't know if that's actually happening, but
I would assume that they would have to like pair these teams up and like because we're getting Cal and Stanford in the same week. I gotta assume that they're like doing like week by week. Either you're on the West Coast or on the East Coast, something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Haven't looked too far into it though.
Yeah, but no, yeah, pretty favorable schedule. My question for you guys when we're talking record. So to give you a frame of reference, last year Pitt was 14-6, finished fifth in the ACC. 24-12 overall. Given that we've run through the schedule now, what would be a good number where you feel like it's a successful season for Pitt hoops?
We said they were 14-6 in the conference last year.
14-6 in the conference, 24-12 overall, and that had us right on the edge, obviously, of the tournament.
I think that you probably have to match that total, given like I think we have a lot of games against sort of teams picked below us in the ACC. What I really will say is that you probably have to get at least one win, between at Duke, home for Clemson, the two UNC games, and like Miami at home. You gotta get at least one of those, preferably like 2, 3. I think is asking for a little bit much, but if you take care of business against the teams that are sort of on your level or below it, you just have to prove yourself in 1 or 2 of those big games.
Yeah, I honestly think that with the schedule that we have this year, you always want to improve, right? It would be nice to get closer to 30 wins. But I think hopefully when we kind of look at our strength of schedule, if we're around that, top 4, top 3 spot, and because we were 14-6 was actually technically tied for third in the conference last year. But obviously, Duke and Clemson had that head-to-head over us.
Yep.
So exactly like you're saying, Zach, if you kind of mix some of those big games in there, I think we're at a fine spot record-wise and with our strength of schedule. Just mix a couple more non-con wins in there and keep doing our thing in the ACC, and I think we'll be all right to make the top 64.
Yeah, and to me, it's it has a little bit less to do with necessarily the ACC record. 14-6 is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The non-con, losing 6 non-con games, if that's what we're looking at. Looking back last year, you lose by double digits to Florida. You lose to Mizzou. That was a tough one. Mizzou ended up being a bad team. I think we got to just do a better job in the non-con schedule of really just, the preseason expectations are a little bit higher this year than they were last year. The, preseason rankings were more on the radar to begin this season than we were last year. If you can get a hot start, win these non-con games, pass the eye test, just really catch the eye of voters early and just get to ACC play in a pretty strong position to begin ACC play, and then you have a season like that where you're 14-6. In the ACC, obviously, you have some games. Duke's going to be really good. They have Cooper Flagg. He's going to be the face of college basketball this year, most likely. Not even most likely, he will be. So all eyes are going to be on Duke and UNC, but Pitt, it has a chance to, if you pull an upset in Cameron Indoor again this year, against a team like that, there's some good opportunities on this schedule to really take this team to the next level, I would say.
Very well said. I don't think I have anything else to say unless you guys have anything else to add on basketball.
No.
No? All right. Well, that'll do it for this week. If you like the show, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at SempleFiPod on Twitter, at Semple_Fi on Instagram. If you like the show, rate us 5 stars in your podcast app of choice and drop us a follow there too. Get notifications for every new episode. And we will see you next week.
Hail to Pitt.
Beat the Cavs.
Volleyball show coming later this week.